The Force-sensitive Anakin Skywalker was raised by the slave Shmi Skywalker on the planet of Tatooine, but was considered to be conceived by midi-chlorians. At the age of 9, the slave life of Anakin Skywalker branched into a path that would reshape the rest of the galaxy. After the Jedi had rescued Queen Amidala of Naboo from the clutches of the Trade Federation, the Federation's fleet hit back at the Queen's starship, leading to their hyperdrive being damaged and a crash landing on Tatooine. Entering into a nearby settlement of Mos Espa, Jedi Master Qui-Gon Jinn noticed the powerful presence of Anakin, and upon a blood check, he was discovered to have a greater midi-chlorian count than Jedi Grandmaster Yoda. With Anakin's heroics, the Jedi and Queen Amidala arrived back on Coruscant, where Qui-Gon is adamant that Anakin was the subject of the prophecy of the Chosen One, and despite the initial doubts and a trip to the dark side, the prophecy was fulfilled. But what if there was another? What if Anakin had a twin? As you're about to find out, the existence of another Anakin could have altered the galaxy. Qui-Gon walked down the ramp of the Queen's battered starship, feeling the soft sand beneath his feet. Reluctantly, the Jedi Master allowed Queen Amidala to join him in his quest to find a new hyperdrive, but he was focused on something he had felt as he landed. A great convergence in the Force was here on Tatooine, and Qui-Gon was going to find it. Walking through the clouds of sand, the group entered the spaceport of Mos Espa and found their way to Watto's workshop. Met by the greedy Toydarian himself, Qui-Gon sensed the presence growing closer and closer until he saw Anakin Skywalker, and the Jedi Master sensed that this boy could be the Chosen One. Walking through the shop, however, there was something incomplete about Anakin, as if there was something or someone else on Tatooine. As he negotiated the parts for the Queen's starship, Qui-Gon picked up his comlink and spoke to Obi-Wan, who was back on the ship. The Master ordered his Padawan to try and relay a message to the Jedi Council that Qui-Gon had found Anakin, but there was no signal. Qui-Gon was soon able to obtain Anakin's blood sample, and his midi-chlorian count was even higher than Master Yoda, but he feared that he was too old to be trained. The Jedi Quinlan Voss, who was also stationed on Tatooine, had seen Qui-Gon walking in the streets with young Anakin, and contacted the Jedi Council, who were intrigued, as Qui-Gon already had a Padawan in Obi-Wan. On Coruscant, the Council are curious and ask Voss to ensure that Anakin is returned to the Jedi Temple for their assessment on if Anakin could be trained. Elsewhere in the Galactic City, Darth Sidious had obtained the coordinates to Queen Amidala and had given them to Darth Maul, but Palpatine had failed to hear from his apprentice since his arrival on Tatooine. With Chancellor Valorum's leadership starting to wilt under the pressure of the other politicians, Palpatine had to remain on Coruscant, so he chose to reveal his thoughts with his master Plagueis, and the wise Dark Lord of the Sith travelled to Tatooine himself, knowing that Palpatine would soon be able to manipulate his way to the role of Supreme Chancellor. Landing in one of the valleys of sand outside Mos Espa, at last Maul receives his communication. Maul recalls what he had seen concerning Anakin, and Plagueis instructs the Zabrak to focus on the boy, and not the Jedi nor the Queen, as Palpatine had instructed. The two Sith walk into the town with their hoods over their heads, and approaching Watto's workshop, the Toydarian's eyes widen at the sight of the two Sith. As they force-choke the dealer, Watto referred them to Shmi Skywalker's home, and they leave Watto slumped over his counter, stealthily darting through the busy streets to the Skywalker home. Plagueis opened the entrance with a small swipe of his hand, and Shmi opened it and was towered by the Sith Lord. Plagueis entered first, and Shmi revealed that Anakin had left with the Jedi, but the Sith Lord sensed Shmi was hiding something. After a number of force chokes, she unveiled the location of another Anakin Skywalker, who was also a capable mechanic and pilot on the other side of the town and in a cantina. With great confidence, Maul led Plagueis through the centre of Mos Espa, and inevitably their cover is blown. Qui-Gon had been walking from one of Anakin's test runs for his upcoming pod race, and upon passing Watto's shop again, he knew someone was after the Jedi or Anakin, as he found the dealer was unconscious. Putting a hand on his lightsaber on his belt, he felt the darkness in the Zabrak in front of him, and lunged towards him. Maul ignited his double-bladed lightsaber just in time to block the Jedi Master, whilst Plagueis had avoided the attention of the Jedi, and was on the search for Anakin. The two duelists sparked the streets of the spaceport, until Plagueis' ship hovered above Maul and they could both leave with Anakin's twin at his side. Qui-Gon looked up at the disappearing stealth ship with annoyance and with great concern. The Zabrak he had fought seemed to be some adaptation of the Sith, an order of dark side users thought to have disappeared a millennia ago, but in order to warn the Council, he would need to leave the planet. With Watto disposed of by the Sith, Qui-Gon is able to ensure the freedom of Anakin and his mother Shmi after he had successfully won the pod race. Taking the part for the hyperdrive from Watto's junkyard, the Toydarian was not aware of the race or losing the bet, and the group all head back to Coruscant. Upon landing, they are greeted by Chancellor Valorum and Senator Palpatine, oblivious that the latter had a hold over Anakin's twin. After greeting the arriving Queen, Palpatine turned and scowled, as he had asked for the Trade Federation to destroy her ship, as well as the Jedi and Qui-Gon, whom had a hold of Anakin Skywalker. Heading back to his apartment, he saw his master Plagueis and his apprentice Maul waiting for him. Looking at the young Anakin huddled in the corner, Sidious deduced that there were far too many of them in the room. As for the Sith, there could only be 2, and he ignited his lightsabers. Plagueis and Maul soon respond to the threat, but are confused as to who to attack. Sidious, however, goes straight for his master Plagueis, but the Sith Master elegantly sidesteps the whirlwind of lightsabers, before reflecting Sidious's force-stunning attacks. The two Sith engage in a vicious forced battle, and Maul realised that he would be outmatched, and through the vibrant haze of white Sith lightning, he carried Anakin to his Sith infiltrator and escaped from Coruscant. Still, the two Sith battled until the energy created burst through the room, and they lay opposite of each other as the roof collapsed on their heads. The following day, the Coruscant police were straight to the scene of the incident, and the medics carry Palpatine and Higo Damask to the Galactic City's medical centre. Soon the Coruscant forces are joined by the Jedi, and they conclude that the explosion happened from a detonator, but Qui-Gon is convinced that this was the work of some Sith magic. The attack on two prominent political figures is used by Supreme Chancellor Valorum, as he blames the Trade Federation and Nute Gunray, but they deny their claims, all the while having their own plans of invading Naboo. The lack of action from the Senate prompts Queen Amidala against the wishes of Chancellor Valorum to secretly recruit the Jedi and the Gungan army. Back in a medical facility on Coruscant, Palpatine awoke at the same time as Plagueis. Their hatred for each other could be felt in the large room, but they realised that Maul had gone, and along with him, the twin of Anakin Skywalker. As they recovered, they discovered to their irritation that Chancellor Valorum had not been voted out, and now the Trade Federation were in danger from an attack. Sidious immediately warned Gunray and the Federation army, but the Jedi and Queen Amidala were already in Naboo. Sidious has to go himself, as Maul had deserted them, and he observed the battle from a nearby hilltop. Ordering the recently acquired droid army to prepare their attack, Sidious tracked the Jedi of Obi-Wan Kenobi and Qui-Gon Jinn to the Theed hangar, and awaited their arrival. The Sith Lord was intrigued by Master Qui-Gon, as he felt different from all of the other Jedi, and could be an ally for the Sith, alongside Jedi Master Dooku, who was falling out with some of the Jedi Council's recent decisions. Opening the heavy blast doors with a swipe of his hand, the eyes of the Jedi narrow in determination, feeling the intense darkness radiating off of the Sith. Sidious used his lightning attack on Kenobi, and the Jedi is taken out of the battle as he dangled at the edge of the cliff face. Sidious and Qui-Gon began to duel, and the Jedi Master could tell that the Sith was toying with him and asked him what he wanted. Sidious told him that he needed Qui-Gon for the future of the galaxy, as soon the Jedi would fall. Qui-Gon increased the speed of his attacks, but Sidious disarmed him and ordered him for a final time to join him. Suddenly, Sidious was projected backwards by a blast from the hangar. Anakin Skywalker had found his way into a starfighter and fired at Sidious, sending the Sith Lord down a narrow shaft and allowing Qui-Gon to escape. After successfully defeating the Trade Federation forces, the Jedi head back to Coruscant, and at the Jedi Temple, Obi-Wan is granted the rank of a Jedi Knight, allowing for Qui-Gon to train Anakin. Back in Senator Palpatine's office, the Sith apprentice was furious, and he vowed for revenge against both Maul and the Jedi. Sidious's former apprentice Maul, however, was far away from Coruscant, as seething with rage from being betrayed and abandoned, he headed back to his home planet of Dathomir, and entering the village of the Night Sisters, he found Mother Talzin awaiting his arrival. The spiritual leader of the clan had sensed Maul's escape and was furious at Sidious. However, her anger soon turned to intrigue as the twin of Anakin Skywalker walked down the ramp, cowering in fear. Tapping into some of the planet's magical core, Talzin puts Anakin into a state of unconsciousness, resting him on a smooth stone slab. With the help of the other sisters, they perform an advanced ritual, tying Anakin to the clan and Maul's command. The dark side training for Anakin Skywalker's twin had begun. Back at the Jedi Temple, Anakin and Shmi were unaware of the fate of the other Anakin, as with an exemption from the Jedi Council, Shmi was able to remain in the temple. Under the tutelage of Qui-Gon Jinn, Anakin learns to not fear the future, and his focus and discipline rivals that of Jedi Knights. Qui-Gon was also very quickly aware of Anakin's attachment to Padme Amidala, and now that she was not on Naboo serving her duties as a queen, rather nominated to be the planet's representative in the Senate, it was unavoidable. The focus on Anakin had an adverse effect on Obi-Wan, as the Jedi Knight grew envious of Anakin, and Grandmaster Yoda was concerned of potentially losing another member of the Order after Dooku, so he decides that the Knight should undergo more training under his own teachings. With Obi-Wan approaching the rank of a Jedi Master, across the Galactic City, Plagueis and Palpatine were working to dispose of Chancellor Valorum, and with Dooku as an ally, the Confederacy of Independent Systems was created. All the Sith needed was to start a war. Plagueis continued to keep an eye on Anakin, whilst Palpatine focused on the hunt for his twin. Heading for the planet of Dathomir, he knew that the clan hated him for taking Maul, but he knew this was the most likely location for Anakin. As he landed in the red mist, he was surrounded by the entire clan, pointing their energy bows at him, and Talzin emerged from the centre of the group and summoned a blade from Night Sister magic. Sidious growled in annoyance, as even if he could defeat them, Maul and Anakin would escape. The annoyed Sith trudged back to his ship, blocking the arrows heading his way, and he struggled to leave the planet, until above him, CIS forces rained gunfire on the planet, and Sidious managed to escape. The activity on Dathomir does not go unnoticed on Coruscant, as the Senate is pushing for Supreme Chancellor Valorum to take quick action. Much to the disappointment of Palpatine, Valorum chooses to enable the Military Creation Act, something that the Sith had planned since the Battle of Naboo, but as he was not the Supreme Chancellor, Valorum would have to be dealt with later. Plagueis and Palpatine ordered Dooku to move his separatist forces from above Dathomir, as they did not want an alliance to take place between the Night Sisters and the Jedi, but they were too late, as the newly drafted Republic forces intercepted Dooku's ship just outside of the planet of Mandalore. In the Jedi Temple, its inhabitants had received the news of the attack on Dathomir from Dooku's forces, and even though they wanted to maintain peace, war was an inevitability. The Jedi deploy a fleet of Acclamator-class transgalactic military assault ships led by General Mace Windu. On the surface below, Obi-Wan reluctantly led the ground assault with Qui-Gon, as he knew that Mandalore was still recovering from the damage caused by the Civil War, and Duchess Satine was opposed to all forms of violence. Running into the royal palace, Obi-Wan stopped as Dooku was sitting on top of the throne, with a struggling Satine under his feet. Qui-Gon is annoyed at what his former master had become, and leapt towards him. Dooku sidestepped the attack, as Satine was freed by Obi-Wan, and escorted out by the new clone troopers. Joining the fight, Anakin is first to help Qui-Gon, who began to tire from his old age, and Dooku smirked at Anakin. The Jedi Knight exudes calmness from the teachings of Qui-Gon, until Dooku revealed that Anakin had a twin. Anakin is distracted for a small moment, and pushed back by Dooku's force-lightning attack, leaving just Obi-Wan. Under the guidance of Yoda, Obi-Wan had learned the element of Tutor Menace, and absorbed Dooku's force-orientated attacks. Dooku's mastery of Form 2 of lightsaber combat, however, was a direct counter to Obi-Wan's Soresu, and he pushed him away towards the throne room entrance. Dooku cackled until he was stopped by heavy and aggressive footsteps. Turning towards the noise, Maul and Anakin's twin had entered the battle. Dooku's eyes narrowed as he saw the renegade Sith Maul and Anakin's twin. Having heard about the Tatooine native from Sidious and Plagueis, Dooku was aware of the twins' abilities and prepared for another duel. As he did so, there was a mighty blast from the outside as wayward fire from a Republic gunship clattered into the throne room, smashing its windows, and the Jedi crawled out of the newly created open area. Maul and his apprentice circled around Dooku, and the Sith asked them to join him in his quest to defeat both Plagueis and Sidious. Maul refuses the offer and launched a barrage of attacks at Dooku, soon joined by Anakin's twin. Dooku is eager to test out the abilities of the Night Sister magic-infused Anakin, but from behind him, Separatist fire began to rain on Maul, and their battle would have to take place on another occasion, as Dooku flew away in a speeder to a Separatist cruiser. With the Sith gone, Maul and his apprentice were left frustrated and were about to leave until another ship landed in the centre of the Republic forces. The clone troopers pointed their blasters at the lowering ramp, and the B-1 battle droids all lowered their weapons. Darth Sidious walked down with his hood over his head, and Maul felt uneasy. The former Sith leapt over the palace walls with his apprentice, but Sidious was catching him until he was stopped by Jedi Grandmaster Yoda, arriving in a low-altitude assault gunship. The Jedi flew out of the ship and entered straight into a battle with the Dark Lord of the Sith, who was only just able to ignite his lightsabers in time. The two pillars of light and dark engaged in a brutal yet elegant duel before Sidious was collected by his personal guards in his executive shuttle. Although he had not completed a morale-crushing victory over the Jedi, it served as a warning that their 1,000 years of relative comfort was over. Back aboard a Republic military cruiser, Qui-Gon, Anakin and Obi-Wan were healing in the medical bay, but Anakin was angry at the two Jedi Masters for failing to tell him that he had a brother. Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan did not know either, so they requested for the presence of Shmi of the Jedi Temple. The stationed Jedi Master Shaak Ti is present to answer their transmission, but to their intrigue and horror, Shmi is missing. The Jedi cruiser could not arrive on Coruscant fast enough, and whilst the other members gathered in the council chamber to go through the events on Mandalore, Obi-Wan and Anakin were investigating the disappearance of Shmi. First they searched her quarters, where there was no trace of where she had been other than their possessions, so they asked the Order's crime specialists Quinlan Vos and Terra Sunube to follow the case. The Kifar Jedi Master touches the floor and discovers that Shmi had disappeared a short while ago, just after the Jedi had taken off for Dathomir. Tracing the tracks of the assailant, they curiously stop just outside of the Senate building. The Jedi are about to rush in when a booming voice echoed across the galactic city and all the civilians scampered into their home. The threat, however, was empty as the voice began to fade away. Following it into the shady and lower levels of Coruscant, the Jedi end up in the Works District and were ambushed from above by a small group of separatist droids. From one side, the hooded Count Dooku told the Jedi that they now knew the truth of Anakin Skywalker and they should join him to defeat the Sith, but they all refused. From another angle, the newly constructed droid cyborg General Grievous stomped into view, then dropped onto the ground below, with his lightsabers brandished. The Jedi had never seen such a towering machine of terror, but Obi-Wan bravely stood in front of them all and attacked the Kaleesh warrior. With the use of his prowess in Soresu, Obi-Wan was soon making Dooku frown as he watched Grievous struggling to defeat the Jedi Master. Soon though, he had other worries, as Quinlan Vos and Anakin Skywalker were attacking him with anger. The Sith apprentice calmly used a force-signing attack to separate himself from the Jedi, before escaping with Grievous and wallowing in their joint failure. The inescapable holograms of Plagueis and Sidious appeared, and they showed their displeasure at another failure by force-choking the Count of Sereno, leaving him on the floor. As Palpatine walked through his suite, the reign of Valorum had gone for long enough, and he took a turbo lift to the highest floor, straight for the Supreme Chancellor. Dismissing the guards outside with a swipe of his hand, Palpatine glided in and lowered his hood. Valorum's head rose from his desk, and he greeted his old friend, but this would be his final act. Darth Sidious had no time to hear of Valorum's pleasantries, as he lifted his hands, engulfing the defenceless Supreme Chancellor. Valorum's body broke the glass behind him, and he tumbled to the surface below. Palpatine calmly walked back to his apartment, finding an incensed Plagueis, as the death of Valorum was not the intended path to Palpatine's reign as Supreme Chancellor. The Sith would have to be careful in the foreseeable future. Back on the ground, the Coruscant police force had gathered around the fallen Valorum, along with Grandmaster Yoda. The wise Jedi is able to spot burned scorches over the body of the former Supreme Chancellor, and he knew that it was the work of the Sith. An emergency meeting is held for the Jedi Council, and they decide to use the evidence to try and extract the identity of the Sith Master, going to the Senate building. As they rush their way into an empty Senate pod, the giant holographic figure of Dooku is waiting for them, and all of the Separatist allies mock and drown the protests of the Jedi. Mace Windu presents the evidence to the Senate, and they all turn to Dooku, but the Sith apprentice denies all the accusations thrown at him before leaving. Palpatine stepped forward and put the motion forward to the Senate, allowing for the clone army and the Jedi Order to capture Dooku, and it eventually passed, so Palpatine had evaded the eyes of the Jedi for now. The Jedi board a Republic cruiser, and they prepared to attack the Separatist fleet, but as they reach the flagship of General Grievous, they see a group of mysterious and stealthy looking ships hovering around them. The hangar opens to reveal a squadron of ARC-170 starfighters, led by Jedi Knight Anakin Skywalker, and they swoop down to the dreadnought below. The Republic forces are joined by the arriving Night Sisters, as well as Night Brothers, and they rush inside to face the droids, as Anakin and now Obi-Wan look for Dooku. Entering a large throne room-like area, Anakin finds General Grievous to the side with Shmi tied up, and he is eager to move to rescue his mother. As he does so, Grievous swings his blade downwards, and Anakin cries out, until the cyborg is pushed back by a powerful force push. From another entrance, Anakin's twin had arrived, labelled by his master Maul to be called Vader, and together the two sons attack Grievous. The cyborg, however, was not overwhelmed by their combined power, so they switched to Dooku, who had been getting the upper hand on Obi-Wan. Dooku was growing weary in his old age, and after a long and grueling duel, he fell to his knees with two lightsabers pointing at his throat. Dooku looked behind them for the help of Grievous, but the fearsome Jedi killer had been defeated by Obi-Wan Kenobi, and together the twins demand to know if he had really killed Chancellor Valorum. Dooku remains silent until he sees Qui-Gon arriving to the battle, and his former apprentice demands Dooku to tell them. The Sith apprentice makes a move to speak, but is suddenly frozen in place as he is hit by mysterious darts from outside. Anakin and Vader look out of the window and see a shadowy figure fading out of view, so Anakin orders those on Obi-Wan's cruiser to observe the assassin. In that moment, Obi-Wan instructs them to hurry over, as Shmi had suffered greatly under the torture of the Sith, and her life was beginning to ebb away. Shmi reveals that Vader had been separated at birth, as she could not raise them both, and the dark side user is hungry for revenge. Beside him, Maul had seen in his visions of the two brothers working together to defeat the Sith, and he goes back to Dathomir to join Talzin and the whole clan. Whilst Obi-Wan was uneasy about having the assistance of Vader, Anakin and Qui-Gon allowed the services of the unusual ally, and headed back out with Shmi's body, walking past the scraps of droids. Together, they go back to Coruscant, and whilst Vader went to talk to the Jedi Council, his brother set about providing a burial for Shmi on Tatooine with Padme, as Obi-Wan tracked down the assassin. The Jedi Master seated himself in the Jedi archives, and looked through the Republic database, then the research done by the Jedi on the criminal underworld, and discovered the bounty hunter was a crafty Duros killer by the name of Cad Bane. Obi-Wan knows they have to track him down, and goes to the Jedi Temple's Situation Room, finding the ship of Anakin on Tatooine. The Jedi Knight was not present aboard the ship, and instead it was Padme Amidala. The Senator is able to inform him that Anakin had lost all contact, likely from the sandstorms of Tatooine, but Obi-Wan sensed something sinister. It was time to get the answers, to end this war. Obi-Wan clambered into his starfighter and alerted the Jedi Council of his mission to rescue Anakin, setting the coordinates for Tatooine. The journey is free of trouble, but the Jedi Master's difficulties would now begin. As he landed beside Padme's H-type Nubian yacht, the Senator rushes to greet him. The winds of Tatooine blew sand into Obi-Wan's face, but he allowed the Force to guide him to a gathering of Tusken Raiders. Using his famous negotiation skills, he discovers that Anakin had been taken to Jabba's palace in the Dune Sea, and together they land their starships beside a single road. The Jedi and Senator trudge to the palace entrance, and are allowed passage into the dimly lit corridor by the droid Gatewatcher. At the sight of the Crime Lord, Obi-Wan and Padme bowed in respect as Obi-Wan spots Cad Bane to the side. Jabba recognised Padme from a previous deal, but gestures to the bounty hunter to eliminate them. Using his flamethrower, Bane tries to engulf the duo, but Obi-Wan uses the Force to reflect it back into the wall, whilst Padme worked on freeing Anakin, who was behind the throne. Bane used his Vambraces to try and stun Obi-Wan, but again, the Jedi Master casually sidesteps the attack. In the confined room, Obi-Wan's style of lightsaber combat was favourable, and engaging in hand-to-hand combat, he cut off the breathing tubes of the Duros Hunter, bringing him to his knees. As Anakin was also freed, the Jedi Knight summoned his lightsaber from a chain on the wall, and took the opportunity to kill Jabba before dragging Bane into the centre of the throne room. Together with Obi-Wan, they enter his mind, and despite strong resistance, they finally break through, and he reveals that he had arrived on the orders of Hugo Damask, otherwise known as Darth Plagueis. Anakin goes to deposit Cad Bane in one of the palace's torture chambers, then follows Obi-Wan and Padme to their ships, unwilling to inform the Jedi Council as their transmissions could be intercepted. Leaving Tatooine, the three members of the Republic are immediately met by fire from the remainder of the Separatist fleet, and both of their ships sustain heavy damage on the way to Coruscant. Skidding to a halt in the Jedi Temple hangar, the two Jedi run off to the Council, whilst Padme set about blocking Palpatine from becoming the new Supreme Chancellor. The Council all stand in unison, igniting their blades, as now it was time to save all the honour they had held for over generations. They all march to the Senate building, and onlookers are confused and terrified. Entering the Senate arena, the Jedi divide into two Senate pods, surging towards Palpatine and the seat of Plagueis. The rest of the politicians ascend into an uproar, with some accusing the Jedi of taking over, but to their horror, Palpatine and Plagueis ignite their red lightsabers. The Sith use their high ground to their advantage, sending force lightning in the direction of the Jedi to push them to the ground below, but eventually, the sheer number of light side users breaches their first wall of defences. Vader now flew in from a side entrance and knocked Plagueis out of the Senate pod and onto the floor. The Sith Lord limped to his feet, but was disarmed by the combined power of Anakin and Vader. As they pointed their lightsabers, he revealed that his experiment with midichlorians had failed, and his visions of the Sith falling had turned out to be true. Plunging their lightsabers into him, evil tendrils flowed across the floor, and they leapt back up to help the fight against Sidious. The Sith Lord was fueled by Plagueis' death, feeling even more powerful, launching a collection of Senate pods at the Flying Jedi. The small stature of Yoda aided his dodging of the projectiles, and he confronted the former senator into a battle of the Force. As Sidious launched force lightning at Yoda, the Skywalker twins acrobatically somersaulted from different sides and cut Palpatine into pieces. The power wielded by the Sith projected skywards, and the roof began to fall on the Jedi and remaining politicians, so they all scurried to the outdoors. Watching as the Senate building began to fall, Anakin ran to find Padme, and fortunately, she was safe. The elections for the successor to Chancellor Valorum were delayed until the building was restored, as Vader chose to leave Coruscant, in spite of being offered by the Jedi, seeking to live his days in peace on Dathomir and with his clan. Anakin, on the other hand, remained at the Jedi Temple, soon made a Jedi Master for his efforts, and thanks to Qui-Gon, Anakin could resume his relationship with Padme, and she would later give birth to twins of her own in Luke and Leia. Anakin knew that the power of the twins would be best together. That is it for What If Anakin Had a Twin. If you enjoyed any part of this series, please like this video, turn on that notification bell, click that subscribe button on this channel for more What Ifs, as well as on my other channel What If Films. And as always, leave a comment on what if you'd all like to see next, and how I can improve my videos. Thank you all very much for watching, and see you next time.